This is Walt Disney World Today. Give us 5 minutes and we'll give you the world.
It's Friday, June 30th, 2006, and this is episode number 120 of Walt Disney World Today. I'm Matt Hochberg from ngmstudios.org. On the show today is Mike Newell of Mouse World Radio. Welcome, Mike.
Howdy ho, Matt.
And also on the show is Mike Scopa of mouseplanet.com. Welcome, Mike.
Kids, stay in school.
Oh, that's a good one.
I don't know where that's from. Where's it from?
Indiana Jones Stunt Spectacular.
All right.
When the director comes over and he says to him, "Let's talk about pyros," and he said, "Well, they're dangerous." And then he comes back and he says, "Kids, stay in school."
Yes, I remember that one now. Very nice. Today we're going to be talking about theme park etiquette. And this is going to be about kind of the do's and mostly don'ts of going to Walt Disney World. Kind of things that will make the rest of the world just a little bit happier if you could follow these along. And I'm sure we would all appreciate if everyone else followed these. So get up on our soapbox a little bit here and talk about some things that proper etiquette through the theme park. And I'm going to start off. I'm going to say before you even leave, and I think this should go without saying, however, unfortunately it doesn't, especially in the summer months, please apply lots of deodorant.
Here.
I'm sure you smell, just like a fresh bed of roses at 9 o'clock in the morning, but make sure you got enough to get you through the day, and maybe bring some backup. Mr. Scopa, what is one of yours?
Well, right off the bat, Matt, I would say that the etiquette really begins before you even get into the park. Because there is so much traffic, because there is such a need to make sure that everything is orderly, you always find an assortment of cast members in the parking lots directing traffic. And I can't stress how important it is to follow their directions and make sure that that you follow them to the T, and I've talked with some of them who've worked out there, and they have a strict pattern as to how they are to direct traffic. And there are reasons why they leave certain spots open, and there are reasons why they want you to follow their directions. And if one person goes against the grain, then it really throws off everyone. And there's a snowballing effect to the people behind you. So the first order of the day is to really pay attention to the parking lot cast members.
Well, speaking of traffic, I'm going to take that, it leads right to my next one, and that is, on the Disney World buses, please, A, move all the way in to the bus, and B, it is not the end of the world if you have to stand on the bus. It'll be you'll be standing quite a lot during the parks, and unfortunately, the buses never get remotely close to full as they should be because folks are just really hesitant to move in. It might go back to my first theme park etiquette about not having enough deodorant, but I mean, Mike Newell, back me up here. I mean, we've seen what buses and subways are like in New York City.
Oh yeah.
The buses in Walt Disney World are terrible. Most people are afraid to stand. There's always the people who just don't even want to. They don't even want to stand. Never mind move in. I'm waiting for one that has a seat, and that just drives me up a wall. Just take a few steps, move it in, and please move all the way in.
I guess that's the city part of us. Get out of my way. let me get to the back of the bus, and let me just get to where I'm going.
Exactly. And of course, that also goes along with the monorail. People are even worse in the monorail because everybody needs to either have a cushy little seat or be able to stick their faces against the window, to see everything. So it always drives me up a wall. It's a pet peeve of mine that people don't maximize the amount of space available on the public transportation at Walt Disney World. Mike Scopa.
You mentioned the phrase pet peeve, and a real big pet peeve of mine is, especially during the summer months, when you are walking through the theme parks and you're checking the shops and you're going in and out of the shops. I don't know how many times I run into people who just love to stand in the doorways, and it prevents people from going in. And most of the time, they just want to stand in the doorway to gain some of the air conditioning. But I'll tell you, it really can be a problem trying to get in and out of these shops. And I just would like to, see people, if you're going into the shop, go into the shop. If you're not going to go into the shop, stay out of the doorway. It just is a pain to deal with that in the summer months.
It sure is. I agree. I got another one, and I don't want to sound like I'm preaching, but if you smoke, please go to the designated areas where they allow you to smoke. Don't smoke just walking down Main Street, because I'm right behind you. You know, it is a no smoking environment. And I don't smoke, so I don't want to sound like I'm preaching, but there are designated areas for you to go, and please go there.
Absolutely. Also, I mean, there are some basic things that should be readily apparent, but unfortunately, some people don't follow it to the T. Keeping up with the person in front of you in the line when you're waiting, especially if it's a long wait and you see the guy up ahead who's talking to someone in their group, and then the gap between that person who's talking and the person in front of them grows and grows and grows, and then it's just like, you try to find something small enough that you can throw, but you can plausibly deny that it was you.
But the good part about that is when they do start to move, then you really get to move.
Yeah, well, there's the instant gratification about that. But then the whole rest of the time in the queue, you're eyeing that guy, waiting for him to screw up again, and then it just drives me up a wall. I mean, don't fall into your own world. And that, of course, Mike Scobie might be able to talk about this a little bit more. Moving not only when you're in line all the way, but when you're entering a theater to one of the shows.
Oh boy, the last time that I had gone in to see Mickey's PhilharMagic, the show actually began before everyone had been seated, because there were many people who decided that they would stop halfway down in the middle of the row and they would sit down. And so there were people who were actually climbing over other people while the show was beginning, and that really bothers me. And the thing is with that is that, as much as we'd like to blame the guests, I really think that those type of attractions need strong-handed cast members to say, hey, you got to go to the end of the line. You have to go all the way to the end of the row. And there was some woman who I was very much afraid of, who was running Mickey's PhilharMagic that day. The problem was she was outside the theater. She should have been inside the theater, raining fear over everyone and saying, hey, you go all the way to the end of the row. I really think that is a real problem, because there's a danger factor there. People falling over other people, trying to climb over people because they think that the best seat in the house is in the middle, and it's not always the case.
And especially it starts to get dark, when the show begins, the house lights go down.
Yep.
And you're trying to keep your group together too, so I agree with that.
I'll also add that, of course, there's some other obvious ones, not referring to Pop Century as Pop Century. It is Scopa Towers. So please don't make that mistake. Mike Scopa, do you have some others?
Yeah, I mean, I think that this is something that probably first-timers are prone to doing, and I guess it's because they don't realize how dangerous it is again, and that is, when guests are requested not to use flash photography, it's for a certain reason. It's to protect the cast members who are up there in Voyage of the Little Mermaid dancing up on stage. They don't need to have themselves be blinded by flashes, and you also want to protect the integrity of the attractions, like in Haunted Mansion, so you should not use flash. So whenever you hear the request not to use flash or not to use any light in an attraction, have some regard for others, and especially the cast members who are trying to make your vacation very enjoyable. So that's very important.
And also, if you could keep the Dole Whip line moving, don't stall, let others get their floats.
That's right.
Just grab it and go. Slide over.
You take your life in your hand if I'm behind you.
I mean, don't start drooling over the food. Move over and allow the next poor soul to indulge themselves. Anyone else got any other ones?
Well, you talked a few minutes ago, Matt, about the queue and problems in the queue. I think that everyone has to be aware when they're in any type of a line for an attraction that there are families around, and sometimes you don't realize it, but you may be cutting and you may be breaking up a family. So be aware as to who's in front of you, who's behind you, and make sure that you don't cut in line. You're breaking up a family who wants to ride an attraction together. And by the same token, parents need to keep their eyes on the kids, because kids can tend to wander, and the next thing you know, they lost their family. So in an area where there's a ton of people. So that's one of my pet peeves. Another one is the fast pass machines, especially the ones with the very popular attractions like soaring. Once you go up and get your fast pass, get out of the way, move on, because there are people behind you who are trying to get the fast pass too. So that's two more that I can think of right off the bat.
Well, I just thought of some more, Mr. Scopa. Proper use or etiquette, perhaps, of the strollers. They are not tools to clear rivers and canyons or people in your way. I mean, they're not, block. They're not the fullback, and you're the running back. To use that effectively, and most people are pretty good about it. But another thing, when it comes to characters, there's nothing wrong with posing for a few pictures and asking for. But if you see a line, take your picture, get your autograph, and kind of try to keep the line moving. Because again, there's lots of people who are waiting there in line also. So it's important to try to, get your picture, and then just move on out.
When we talk about, you talked about having your picture taken with characters, Matt. I think that one aspect of theme park protocol that should really be up front, that is being aware as to the cast members' jobs and what they're trying to do. They're trying to give us the best vacation that we can ever have. So when we do interact with the characters, with the cast members who are portraying characters, I think that we need to give them the best day of their lives on the job and play along with them. So when you address them in their character and really sort of let them know that you really appreciate their efforts. And I think that it would make their day.
Yeah, and to add to that, I would say not only to do what you just said, Mike, but some of the less popular characters like the Sheriff of Nottingham or someone equally not as interesting. I mean, a lot of these times, like I know Rafiki's one of them that I always see by themselves. If you see a character by themselves, go. It's an opportunity to have a lot of fun because this cast member has likely been not entertaining other guests, so they've got a whole lot of pent up energy. And it could be a lot of fun to have them, kind of all to yourself because, I was saying when there's a large line, I mean, if you're there to see Mickey, you want to keep it moving. But when you have a character kind of to yourself, I mean, kind of indulge them, just like you said. And talk to them a little bit, interact with them, and it could be a lot of fun.
I think you're right. I think we have to realize, again, that, they're doing their job, and we need to help them do their job to the point where they really enjoy, what they're doing. And not to say that they don't, but, we just make it a little bit special for them because they're trying to make it special for us.
Sure. And speaking of characters, there's parades.
Parades. I've talked with so many of my cast member friends who have done parade, crowd control, and every one of them has told me that if I ever get a chance to tell as many people as possible, to tell the guests that for daytime parades you really need to find your spot 1 hour beforehand, and for nighttime parades 90 minutes ahead of time. And the reason why I mention that is that there's nothing more irritating than somebody showing up 5 or 10 minutes before parade and trying to sneak in, to squeeze in an area where people who have been waiting an hour and 15 minutes, an hour and a half to watch the parade, and that there's a lot of consideration that needs to be taken place there. It's really it's a matter of being polite. It's a matter of also making sure that your family has a good spot for the parade. And if that means setting up an hour and a half beforehand and sitting down on a curb on Main Street USA for Spectral Magic or something like that, then you have to do it.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's nothing worse than you've been staking out a great spot for whatever it's been, even if it's been 20 minutes before parade time, on the slower times of the year. But regardless, when you've been there for a little while, staking out your spot, and then someone else sees that there's exactly 6 inches that you left between yourself and the curb, well, that 6 inches is perfect for them because they could fit right in over there, and it's like, dude, you should have been here. Where were you 30 minutes ago, 60 minutes ago? So it's important to, we're all entitled to enjoy ourselves at Walt Disney World and have great times, but, be considerate of others that are out there. And that really just goes to most of our points here, Mike, that it's really about being considerate to other people. That whole golden rule, be do good to others as you would want them done on yourself, or something along those lines.
Do unto others as you would have them do unto you.
Thank you. Clearly, I have to work on that. But really, it really is just about being considerate to others, isn't it, Mike?
I think so. I think that it comes down to common sense, and usually you can spot those guests in the park who live by those rules that they like to treat people the way they want to be treated. And the other thing to keep in mind is that we're interacting with people from all around the world. So there are different cultures, and sometimes we have to be tolerant of those cultures and realize that they may not have a true understanding as to what theme park protocol is all about. A lot of them, come to Walt Disney World or Disneyland, and it's their first and only trip, and they may not be aware as to all the little rules that we're talking about right now, the unwritten laws, if you will, of the unwritten commandments of theme park touring. And so, we have to be a little tolerant of them and understand that not everyone will be following these rules, but that doesn't mean that we don't have to follow them.
Yeah, those tourists from Jersey are just terrible, aren't they?
Oh, man. Are they still allowed in the parks?
All right. Well, all of you New Jersey listeners can comment in the show notes of this episode, along with everybody else, and let us know maybe some of the other theme park etiquette that we may have missed on, as I'm sure there's some other qualms that others have had. And before we go, I also want to give a shout-out to Subsonic Radio, where we're now heard on Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays twice a day. So thank you for syndicating us. And Mike Scopa is also reminding me that to buy all of our stuff, merchandise. So go buy shirts so that Mike Scopa can eat tonight.
I also have an announcement to make.
Oh?
I don't know how many more days I'll be in the park this year, but I'm going down at least 3 or 4 more times. And I just want the listeners to know that if I happen to be in a theme park and I happen to see someone who is wearing a WDW Today shirt or a Scopa, I will go up, introduce myself to them, and I will treat them to either a Mickey bar or a Dole Whip, depending upon which park we're in. So that's my challenge to the rest of my WDW Today co-hosts, and I just want everybody to know that if we do see you with a shirt on, I'm gonna show you my appreciation for your support.
There you go. Buy our overpriced merchandise, then get approached by a complete stranger and offered food from them.
Right.
But anyway, all the merchandise information can be found at our website at wdwtoday.com on the right-hand side. That's it for us today. This has been episode number 120 of Walt Disney World Today. If you want to find older episodes, read our show notes, or send us your comments, you can visit the Walt Disney World Today website at www.wdwtoday.com. You can also email us at questions@wdwtoday.com. For Len Testa, Mike Scopa, Mike Newell, I'm Matt Hochberg. So we'll see you on the next show.